When the winds of change begin to stir in your life, when the calm is broken by something you can't quite define, when you feel a divine shift shaking your spirit, child of God, pay attention. This is not random. This is not chance. This is not coincidence. This is God. And when God begins to move, you must move with Him, because when His hand sets things in motion, nothing and no one can stop it, but you can miss it if you're not aligned. Hear this clearly. Alignment is not automatic, it's not passive, it's not casual. It is intentional, it is spiritual, it is costly, and it is necessary. If your heart is not postured in obedience, if your spirit is not anchored in reverence, if your life is not ready to shift when He speaks, you may find yourself watching a miracle you were meant to be part of from the outside. Many cry out for breakthrough but resist the breaking. Many ask for new doors but grip the old keys with clenched fists. Many say, "God, change me," and yet refuse to move when change comes. But when God begins to move, He's not looking for your comfort, He's calling for your cooperation. This is not a time for hesitation. This is not a season for spiritual sleep. This is the hour to awaken. This is the moment to surrender. Because when God moves, mountains shift, chains fall, barriers break, and roads appear where there were none. But you must be willing to walk the road. You must be willing to release what feels safe in order to step into what is sacred. God is moving. Make sure you're moving with Him. Because the unknown with God is safer than the familiar without Him. Too many people are waiting for God to adjust to their schedule, waiting for God to come in a package they approve of, waiting for God to confirm their comfort rather than confront their compromise. But God is not a servant to your comfort. He is the fire that consumes it. When God begins to move, He disrupts everything that is not rooted in Him. He exposes foundations that were built on fear. He confronts plans that were born in ego. And if your heart is not yielded, if your spirit is not humbled, you will interpret His movement as loss when it is really promotion. You must understand, when God begins to move, He is not always loud. He is not always dramatic. Sometimes He moves in silence. Sometimes He speaks through unrest. Sometimes He shakes the foundation of your life just enough to cause you to kneel. Because alignment starts in surrender, not in strength, not in striving, but in letting go. Letting go of your timeline, letting go of your expectations, letting go of the way you thought things would go, and opening your heart to the divine direction that only God can provide. But listen to me now. God does not move in confusion. God moves in clarity. His movement is not chaos, though it may unsettle you. His movement is not destruction, though it may remove things you thought you needed. God's movement is always holy, always just, always rooted in purpose. But it will challenge your flesh. It will call your spirit to attention. It will demand that you stop playing small. It will expose the areas in your life where you've been resisting transformation. Because when God begins to move, He is not just changing your surroundings, He is changing you. And here is the truth few want to hear. Alignment will cost you. It will cost you pride. It will cost you comfort. It will cost you relationships that are not rooted in God's truth. But what you lose in comfort, you gain in clarity. What you lose in familiarity, you gain in favor. God does not call you to alignment to break you. He calls you to alignment to bless you, but you must be willing to walk away from what's good to step into what's God. Some of you are praying for open doors while sitting in rooms God has already left. You are clinging to expired seasons. You're holding on to habits that no longer serve your future. You're asking God for a breakthrough while resisting the very movement that brings it. But you cannot step into what's next while still chained to what's past. You must unclench your fists You must release what God has already removed. Because when God begins to move, delay is disobedience. Delay is distraction. Delay is dangerous. God is not waiting for you to feel ready. He is waiting for your yes, your full yes, your surrendered yes, your obedient yes. That kind of yes opens heavens. That kind of yes shifts atmospheres. That kind of yes aligns you with the unstoppable will of God. But it will not come without resistance, because the moment you begin to align with God, hell will panic. The enemy will stir. Distractions will increase. Temptations will multiply. But stand firm. Stay planted. Keep your eyes fixed on God. Because what He started, He will finish. And if He is moving, you better move too. There is a rhythm to God's movement, a divine cadence. And when you begin to align yourself, you begin to move in step with that rhythm. You stop striving and start flowing. You stop controlling and start trusting. You stop begging and start believing. That is what alignment does. It brings your spirit into harmony with heaven. It tunes your ears to hear the whisper of God, even in the noise of life. It causes you to walk with confidence, not because you know the way, but because you know the one who does. This alignment is not just about movement. It's about mindset. It's about attitude. It's about posture. Some of you are in the right place, but with the wrong posture. You are where God placed you, but your heart is still bitter. Your mouth still complains. Your faith still wavers. And that misalignment will block what God wants to pour out. God cannot bless pride. God cannot dwell in rebellion. God moves where there is humility, where there is brokenness, where there is faith. So check your posture. Is your spirit aligned with what your mouth is praying for? Is your character aligned with the blessings you're asking for? When God begins to move, He tests your faith, not to harm you, but to refine you, because He cannot elevate what hasn't been tested. He cannot promote what hasn't been purified. So when the fire comes, don't run. When the shaking begins, don't retreat. When everything familiar begins to fall apart, don't fear. That's the proving ground of alignment. That's the soil where purpose begins to grow. That's the furnace where destiny is formed. You see, God doesn't just want to bless you, He wants to trust you. And trust is earned in the places no one sees, in the silence, in the waiting, in the obedience that costs you, in the midnight prayers, in the lonely steps of faith. That's where alignment is forged. That's where character is built. That's where you begin to match the movement of God, not just with your words, but with your life. Let me tell you, when God begins to move, He will reveal things. He will uncover truth. He will show you what was hiding in the shadows. He will bring things to light, not to shame you, but to cleanse you. Because alignment requires purity, not perfection, but purity. A pure heart, a pure motive, a pure desire to follow God above all else. That is the kind of heart God can use. That is the kind of spirit God can partner with. And when you align, truly align, your life becomes a vessel for something far greater than you. You become a carrier of divine purpose, a conduit for transformation, a light in the darkness. You don't just talk about faith, you become a living demonstration of it. And people will look at you and know, not by your words, but by your fruit, that God is with you, that God is guiding you, that God is moving through you. But make no mistake, alignment requires discipline. It requires consistency. It requires that you stay committed even when you don't feel it. Because faith is not a feeling, it is a decision. A decision to trust when you can't see, a decision to obey when you don't understand, a decision to follow when it's not popular. That is the price of alignment. But oh, the reward is greater than anything you could ever imagine, because when you align with God, you don't chase blessings. Blessings chase you. You don't strive for success. Favor finds you. You don't manipulate outcomes. Peace anchors you. That is the power of being in the center of God's movement. That is the authority that comes from divine alignment. So if you sense that God is stirring something in your life, don't ignore it. Don't silence the voice that is calling you deeper. Don't resist the pull that is drawing you higher. Move, align, obey, trust. Because God is not just moving around you, He is moving in you, through you, for you. And if you are willing, if you are ready, if you are aligned, nothing will be able to stop what He is about to do. You will walk in rooms you didn't qualify for. You will see doors open that others tried to shut. You will experience restoration where there once was ruin, and it won't be because of your strength. It will be because you aligned with the strength of God. You surrendered, you yielded, you trusted, and now the favor of God goes before you. This is the season to align. This is the season to move with God. Not ahead of Him, not behind Him, but with Him. In rhythm, in reverence, in radical obedience. Because when God begins to move, it's not just an opportunity, it's a divine summons. And your response will determine your harvest. Your response will shape your destiny. So don't delay, don't hesitate, align yourself now. Because the movement of God waits for no man, and when He moves, you want to be found ready, not reacting, but prepared, not wondering, but worshiping, not guessing, but grounded. Aligned in spirit, aligned in purpose, aligned in faith. And if you stay aligned, if you stay yielded, if you keep your posture humble and your heart pure, you will see the hand of God move in ways you never imagined. You will witness the supernatural in the natural. You will rise when others fall. You will stand when the storm rages. Because you are not anchored in circumstances. You are anchored in God. You are not swayed by opinions. You are led by divine truth. And that is where power resides. That is where purpose is fulfilled. That is where the fullness of God's plan unfolds. And now hear this. When God begins to move in your life, He often does so in ways that defy logic. What seems like loss may be the very path to gain. What feels like a delay may be divine protection. What looks like rejection may actually be redirection. You must not lean on human understanding, because when God moves, His wisdom shatters the limitations of man's reason. You cannot chart the map of a divine journey with human intellect. You must be led by the stillness that speaks from the depth of your soul, where God whispers in clarity, "Trust me." When God starts to shift the ground beneath you, it's not to shake you into fear, it's to awaken you to faith. Faith that stands when the floor moves. Faith that walks when the road vanishes. Faith that obeys when the outcome is uncertain. This kind of faith cannot be borrowed, cannot be faked, and cannot be learned from books alone. It is born in the fire, it is built in the valleys, it is refined through storms. And it is this unshakable, heaven-breathed faith that aligns your soul with the very hand of God. Understand this deeply. Alignment is not a matter of merely being in the right place. It is about becoming the right person. You must become the vessel worthy of carrying what God is about to release. You must become the ground ready to receive the rain. Too many ask for the harvest without allowing God to till the soil. They ask for the outpouring without surrendering to the pruning. But God does not pour living water into vessels that leak. He does not release destiny into hearts still ruled by fear, pride, or bitterness. You must be transformed to be trusted. You must be emptied to be filled. You must be made uncomfortable to be made unstoppable. And yes, it will hurt. Yes, it will cost you friends. Yes, it will require that you walk away from the shallow applause of men. But what you gain from God is worth every tear, every lonely night, every sacrifice. Because when God breathes on your life, what once was buried will rise. What once was dead will awaken. What once seemed impossible will become your testimony. When God begins to move, He will expose the distractions. He will strip away the idols. He will clear out the noise. Why? Because He cannot compete for your attention. God will not bless your life while you're bowing at the altar of your own desires. He calls for all of you. Total devotion, unwavering surrender, no compromise. That is the price of true alignment, not just a moment of faith, but a life lived in full submission to God's will. If your mind is still ruled by doubt, if your words are still poisoned with negativity, if your actions still reflect rebellion, then don't expect to move with the movement of God. Because God is holy, God is just, and God will not pour His sacred plans into a heart that is still entangled in unholy things. So cleanse yourself, not by outward rituals, but by inward repentance. Turn away from anything that dulls your spirit, silences your convictions, or clutters your path with confusion, and return to the stillness where God waits. In the silence, God speaks. In the waiting, God shapes. And in the fire, God prepares. If you are going through a season of uncertainty, it may not be punishment. It may be preparation. God will often allow the wilderness before the breakthrough to test your loyalty, to strip away dependency on others, and to see if you trust Him more than the promise. Many are willing to follow God to the blessing, but not many are willing to follow Him through the breaking. But those who do, those who endure, who stay faithful, who remain aligned, are the ones God crowns with glory. Stop asking for clarity and start walking in obedience. Clarity often comes after the step of faith, not before. God does not reveal every detail because if He did, you would try to control it. He gives just enough light for the next step, because alignment is not about understanding the whole picture. It's about trusting the painter. You were never meant to see it all. You were meant to walk by faith, live by faith, move by faith, and let God be the one who orders your steps. When God begins to move, the enemy will launch counterattacks. You will face distractions dressed as opportunities. You will see people rise up against you who once supported you. You will feel the sting of betrayal, the heaviness of doubt, the fatigue of spiritual warfare. But don't let that break your alignment. Don't let the temporary pressure pull you out of eternal purpose. Stay focused, stay rooted. Because the enemy cannot curse what God has blessed. He can only try to distract you from seeing it. And distraction is just as dangerous as destruction, because both delay your destiny. Let me speak to your soul. There is greatness within you, but it will never be realized until you surrender to something greater than yourself. And that greatness is not measured by applause, numbers, or titles. It is measured by obedience, measured by purity, measured by how tightly your life clings to the will of God. That is the alignment that moves heavens. That is the life that shifts nations. That is the heart God uses to make history. Some of you are still waiting for confirmation, still waiting for a sign. But the sign is in the shift. The sign is in the restlessness. The sign is in the unanswered prayers. God is not punishing you. He is preparing you. He is rerouting you. He is calling you deeper. But you must respond. Alignment requires response. When you feel the wind of God's movement, you must set your sails. You cannot remain docked in fear. You cannot remain anchored in regret. Let go, let God, move forward. And don't expect everyone to understand your alignment. Don't expect everyone to celebrate your obedience. When God starts to separate you, it's because He is sanctifying you. Not everyone can go where you are going. Not every relationship can survive the fire of transformation. And that's okay, let them go, bless them, but don't stop. Keep walking, keep aligning, keep obeying. Because your destiny is not tied to those who leave, it's tied to the one who stays. And God never leaves, God never forsakes, God never fails. You will see people rise around you who are not more talented, but they are more aligned. You will witness the favor of God fall on those who dare to walk in surrender, not because they are perfect, but because they are positioned. And when you see it, don't envy, imitate, don't resent, reflect. Ask yourself, is my life positioned to receive the rain? Is my spirit in sync with God's rhythm? Is my heart truly ready to carry the weight of what I'm asking for? Because blessings come with burdens, promotion comes with pressure, breakthrough comes with responsibility, and if you are not aligned, the very thing you begged for could break you. But when you are aligned, God strengthens your shoulders. God fortifies your mind. God anchors your soul so deeply that nothing in the world can uproot your purpose. And yes, there will be days you feel like quitting. Days where the silence of God feels louder than His voice. But hold on. Alignment is not proven in the easy days. It is proven in the trials, in the crushing, in the pressing. That's where oil is made. That's where character is shaped. That's where your faith becomes unshakable. You don't grow in the sunshine, you grow in the storms. And a storm doesn't mean God has left you, it means He is near, moving, shaping, working, refining, preparing. And now, in this moment of awakening, let the soul hear clearly. When God begins to move, He is not merely shifting circumstances, He is calling forth destiny. He is awakening something ancient and eternal within you, something planted before time itself. This is not simply about promotion or provision. This is about divine positioning. God is setting you in the place where His purpose and your obedience collide. And that collision will release a sound in the earth that no force can silence. But hear this, alignment is not a performance, it is a posture. Not a display for others, but a surrender to God that happens in the unseen corners of the heart. You must stop thinking that alignment is about convenience or comfort. It is about covenant. It is about the solemn, unbreakable bond between your soul and your Creator. When God moves, He searches not for talent, not for charisma, not for status, but for the one who is available. The one who is empty enough to be filled. The one who is quiet enough to hear. The one who is willing to be made low so that God can be made known. I say this to you also, by the way. Cling to God in the dark, late places. That is the soul God uses. That is the heart that carries heaven's weight. Do not be fooled by outward success. Do not envy the fast rise of those who have no roots. Because when the winds blow, only the deeply planted will remain standing. God is not building for a moment, He is building for eternity. And if it feels like He is taking His time with you, it is because He is building something that will last, something that will carry the weight of future generations, something unshakable. But to walk in that kind of legacy, you must live in alignment every single day. You cannot afford to drift. You cannot afford to be double-minded. You cannot afford to live half-committed. Some think they can be halfway in and still receive the fullness of what God wants to pour. But God does not bless divided hearts. He does not anoint double lives. He moves where there is singular focus, unwavering faith, and complete surrender. That is where His power flows. That is where His presence dwells. So purge the distractions, purify your motives, strip away the layers of people-pleasing, fear, and compromise, and come before God with a heart that says, whatever it takes, make me aligned. Because when God moves, He doesn't just give you new surroundings, He gives you new vision. You begin to see what you couldn't see before. You begin to discern what others miss. And that clarity will cost you. It will isolate you. It will burden you with responsibility. But it will also liberate you. It will anchor you. It will guide you through the storm with unwavering peace. Because now you are not moving for approval. You are moving in step with the Almighty. And understand this, alignment requires warfare. The moment you align with God, you declare war on everything that once had access to your life. Darkness will push back, old temptations will whisper, doubt will rise like a flood. But do not retreat, do not panic. God has already gone before you. You are not fighting for victory, you are fighting from victory. The moment you said yes to God's movement, heaven stood with you. And even if no one else understands, even if they mock you, even if they walk away, you keep moving, you keep obeying. Because you're not following feelings, you're following fire, the fire of God's presence, the fire of His leading, the fire of His call. There is a remnant rising, those who are not seeking fame, but favor. Not applause, but alignment. And if you're hearing these words, you are likely part of that remnant. God didn't choose you because you were the most polished. He chose you because you said yes. And now your yes must become a lifestyle. Your yes must be louder than your excuses, louder than your fears, louder than your critics. Because your yes carries generations inside of it. What you align with today will bless those who come after you. The alignment of one obedient soul can break curses, open gates, and shift entire bloodlines. So don't take this lightly. Don't think your obedience is small. Every quiet act of surrender is a roar in the realm of the unseen. Every time you walk away from what is easy to choose, what is holy, you align deeper with God's will. And every time you say no to what your flesh wants and yes to what your soul needs, you're stepping into divine power. Power that cannot be earned, power that cannot be bought, power that only comes to those who are fully yielded to God's movement. You must be willing to live different, to walk alone if you have to stand when everyone else sits, to believe when others doubt. Because alignment is costly, but disobedience is deadly. And the consequences of missing God's timing are far greater than the discomfort of walking by faith. So choose today, choose to align, choose to trust, choose to go all in. Because when God moves and you move with Him, you become unstoppable. Not because of who you are, but because of who you're walking with. And do not forget, God does not reveal everything at once. He leads you step by step, day by day, season by season, and you must learn to be content with the mystery, to walk even when you don't see. Because alignment is not about knowing, it's about trusting. And those who trust God in the unknown will see Him in ways others never will. That's the promise of divine alignment, not comfort, but closeness, not ease, but presence. And in the presence of God, there is power. In the presence of God, there is clarity. In the presence of God, there is peace that surpasses understanding. So fix your eyes, guard your heart, sharpen your ears, because God is speaking, God is moving, and if you are aligned, truly aligned, you will not miss it. You will not fall behind. You will not be overwhelmed. You will walk in supernatural rhythm. You will move with boldness, with clarity, with divine authority, because you have chosen not to walk ahead, not to walk behind, but to walk in perfect step with God's movement. And that is the highest calling. That is the greatest privilege, to be one with the will of God, to move when He moves, to speak when He speaks, to act when He leads. Nothing else matters. Nothing else compares. So let your life be a declaration of alignment. Let your soul burn with obedience. Let every part of you cry out, "Not my will, but yours, O God." And let that cry become your compass, your foundation, your covering. Because when God sees a life truly surrendered, He pours without measure, He leads without pause, He blesses without limit. And He moves with such power that nothing on earth or in the heavens can stop what He has ordained. That is the reward of alignment. That is the blessing of walking in step with God. And now, as the flame of truth continues to burn in your heart, let it be known. When God begins to move, He will not ask for your preferences. He will demand your purity. Because alignment is not only about what you are walking toward, but also about what you are willing to walk away from. You cannot hold on to bitterness and expect peace. You cannot cling to fear and expect boldness. You cannot serve two masters and expect power from the one who commands all creation. Alignment is a line drawn in the Spirit, a decisive, deliberate choice to say, God, you alone lead my life. When God begins to elevate you, He will expose the weights, the hidden compromises, the silent idols, the buried habits. Because elevation without purification is destruction in disguise. God will not take you to heights where your character cannot sustain you. He will not place a crown on a head that refuses to bow. So if you feel pressure in this season, if you feel the squeeze, the breaking, the refining, it is not punishment. It is preparation. God is aligning your inner life to carry out victory, because what you carry in secret will either support or sabotage what God wants to reveal in public. There is a reason the preparation is hidden, because the most sacred moves of God are formed in secret. Before God moves through you, He moves in you. Before He opens the door, He checks the heart. Before He brings the increase, He tests the integrity. And you must pass that test, not with grand gestures, but with quiet obedience. When no one is watching, when no one applauds, when every part of your flesh wants to quit, but your spirit whispers, stay faithful. That is where alignment is forged, in the unseen, in the uncelebrated, in the trenches of obedience. And don't think that because the process is silent, the outcome will be small. No, child of God, when God begins to move, He works from the inside out. He starts deep so that what is built cannot be shaken. And when the foundation is divine, the structure will not collapse. The fruit will last. The blessings will not turn into burdens, because they are rooted in obedience and grown through discipline. Listen well. Alignment is not always rewarded immediately. It may not bring applause. It may not earn approval. But it brings authority. The authority that cannot be imitated, the authority that cannot be earned through image or influence. This authority comes from walking in step with the Creator of all things. It comes from having nothing to prove and everything to protect. It comes from knowing that your help comes from God, not from people, not from systems, not from man-made platforms, but from the one who sees in secret and rewards in His perfect time. When God begins to move, it becomes dangerous to remain neutral. Neutrality in the face of divine instruction is rebellion dressed in passivity. You must choose your posture. You must decide where you stand. You must declare with your actions, your discipline, your focus, that you will move with God no matter what it costs. Because neutrality robs momentum. Delayed obedience is disobedience. And if you know God is stirring, if you feel the pull in your soul, then this is not the time to weigh options. This is the time to surrender fully and respond boldly. Some of you have been circling the same mountain, praying for breakthrough, crying out for direction. But God is waiting for your feet to move. You want confirmation, but God is calling for action. You want signs in the sky, but God has already spoken to your spirit. And until you move, the next step will remain hidden. God does not give blueprints to those who refuse to build. He does not open the heavens to those who won't take the first step on earth. So walk, move, go forward, not blindly but boldly, with full faith that if God has begun to move, then every step forward is a step into destiny. And let me tell you, when you begin to walk in alignment, your atmosphere will change. Your circle will shrink. Not everyone can stay connected to someone who walks in step with God, because your movement will convict their stagnation, your clarity will expose their confusion, your peace will frustrate their chaos. Don't apologize for it. Don't dim your light to make others comfortable. Stay aligned, stay true. Let your life be a mirror that reflects the holiness of God and a fire that ignites obedience in others. When God moves, He moves with precision. There is no randomness in His leading. Even the detours are divine. Even the delays are loaded with destiny. Nothing is wasted when you are aligned. Every pain has a purpose. Every battle has a blessing. Every trial is wrapped in wisdom. You may not understand it now, but trust that God does. And what you survive in alignment, you will later speak about in power. You will testify not just about what happened, but about who God became to you in the middle of it all. Alignment births intimacy. When you walk closely with God, you begin to recognize His patterns. You begin to anticipate His movement. You begin to discern what others cannot see. That is why spiritual alignment is not merely a command. It is a privilege. You become a partner in the unseen plans of God. You carry not just a dream, but a divine assignment. And when you carry that assignment with reverence, with discipline, with unwavering trust, God surrounds you with favor like a shield. So be warned, misalignment isn't always obvious. Sometimes it comes in the form of distractions that look like opportunities, relationships that feel good but pull you away from God's path, decisions that seem logical but are void of divine instruction. You must learn to test everything by the fire of God's truth, not by your emotions, not by popular opinion, but by the still, unmistakable voice of God that speaks through peace, conviction, and wisdom. Because one wrong turn can delay your journey, one compromise can cost you years of divine progress. So guard your path, guard your focus, guard your alignment with everything you have. And if you've strayed, return. If you've drifted, repent. It is not too late. The same God who called you then is calling you now. His mercy is wide enough to welcome you back. But come back with humility. Come back with hunger. Come back ready to align completely. Not casually, not occasionally, but continually. Because when God begins to move, He is not looking for part-time obedience. He is searching for those who will say, God, not my will, but yours. Not my plans, but your purpose. Not my pace, but your path. And once you are truly aligned, your life will become an instrument of divine impact. Not because of status, not because of success, but because of surrender. You will walk into rooms carrying the weight of heaven. You will speak and atmospheres will shift. You will pray and mountains will move. You will lead not with pride, but with purity. Not with ego, but with God's authority resting upon you like a mantle of fire. So let this be the season where you stop waiting for the perfect moment and start walking with perfect surrender. Let this be the hour where you cast off everything that hinders and run with endurance the race marked for you by the hand of God alone. Let this be the chapter where your story aligns with God's script, where your days are not wasted in wishful thinking, but lived in radical obedience. Because there is no greater calling than to be aligned with the Almighty, no higher purpose than to walk in the rhythm of His will, no deeper joy than to know beyond all doubt that your life is in step with the one who holds the stars in His hands. So move with God, trust His movement, guard your alignment, and let your every step echo one truth, that your life belongs to God and to God alone. And now, let your heart grasp this sacred truth. When God begins to move, your surroundings may not look like a blessing at first. In fact, the first sign that God is realigning your life is often discomfort. Things begin to shift, routines are interrupted, familiar doors close, and the ground you once stood on begins to shake. But don't mistake divine disruption for destruction. What looks like chaos to the flesh is often the precise order of God in the Spirit. God is not interested in preserving your comfort. He is focused on awakening your calling. There comes a time when you can no longer afford to live reactive to circumstances. You must become responsive to God. That means you stop allowing life to dictate your direction and you start moving by divine instruction. You stop chasing validation and start walking in revelation. When you are aligned with God, your decisions are no longer based on fear, pressure, or public opinion. They are anchored in the certainty that comes from knowing you are being guided by the one who created time, who holds every outcome, who sees beyond every obstacle. You must realize God's movement in your life is not always loud, but it is always purposeful. The most significant shifts often begin with a whisper, a stirring in your soul, a holy unease with where you are, a quiet prompting to leave what's good to pursue what's ordained. Do not ignore the whispers. Do not silence that inner conviction. God doesn't always come with thunder. Sometimes He speaks through a holy silence. And only those who are spiritually aligned will recognize the weight of that silence. That silence will press on your heart, pull on your spirit, and urge you to shift before the storm even comes. And if you want to stay aligned when God begins to move, you must become disciplined in the waiting. Waiting is not wasted when it is filled with worship. When God has you in a season of preparation, do not despise it, do not rush it. Because what you do while you wait determines whether you'll be ready when the door opens. God doesn't just open doors, He prepares the person who will walk through them. He shapes your character before He releases the call. He tests your motives before He multiplies your reach. So if you feel hidden, thank God. If you feel overlooked, praise Him. Because when God hides you, it is never to withhold, it is to refine. Let this truth echo in your soul. You do not need to force open what God has sealed, and you do not need to remain in what God has already closed. The greatest delays come when people camp out in expired seasons, still holding on to yesterday's instructions, while God is waiting for them to obey today's command. Alignment means learning to move on when God has moved on. Not in rebellion, not in bitterness, but in faith. Trusting that God's plan is never stagnant. It is living, breathing, unfolding with every step of surrendered obedience. You see, God's movement is not just external, it is internal. He moves in your thoughts, in your desires, in the posture of your heart. And if your inner life is out of order, your outer life will always reflect that chaos. That is why God starts with the hidden places. He cleanses your mind, purifies your intentions, reorders your priorities. Because true alignment is not when everything looks right on the outside, it's when everything is right before God on the inside. Alignment begins when your ambitions bow to His authority, when your desires surrender to His direction, when your plans collapse at the feet of His purpose. And when that happens, when God sees a heart that no longer competes with His will, He begins to accelerate what was once delayed. What took years in the natural can unfold in moments when your life becomes fully aligned. The doors you couldn't pry open in your strength will swing wide when God knows you're ready. Because He is not only preparing the blessing for you, He is preparing you for the blessing. And when the time is right, when the vessel is purified, when the heart is ready, God moves without hesitation. Suddenly, the waiting turns to walking, the silence turns to sound, the wilderness turns to rivers, and what you thought would never happen becomes the very thing God manifests before your eyes. But this kind of divine release can only be sustained by continued alignment. You must live guarded, not paranoid, but discerning, not fearful, but alert. Because not everything that glitters is from God. Not every open door is divine. Some doors are traps in disguise, crafted to look like opportunity, but designed to pull you out of alignment. That is why you must constantly return to the secret place, where your discernment is sharpened, where your flesh is silenced, where your spirit is tuned to the voice of God. You cannot afford to lead yourself. You must be led, and to be led, you must be quiet enough to hear. There is a rhythm to divine alignment, a sacred pace. And when you move with God, you don't stumble in haste, you walk in peace. You don't chase, God brings what's meant for you. You don't force, God flows. This is not the rhythm of the world. The world glorifies speed. God values surrender. The world applauds noise. God works in stillness. The world pushes you to be seen. God develops you in secret. And when you finally emerge, it is not with arrogance, it is with awe. Awe of what God has done, awe of how He kept you, awe of how He used even your brokenness as part of the story. So walk in reverence, speak with restraint, listen more than you demand. Because a soul aligned with God doesn't strive to impress. It longs to obey. It doesn't seek titles, it seeks truth. And when your inner world is fully aligned with the holiness of God, everything begins to fall into place by divine design. You won't have to strive for favor. Favor will find you. You won't have to search for peace. Peace will settle into your soul and stay. You won't have to manipulate or maneuver. God will handle things you didn't even know were broken. And to the one who's been feeling left out, forgotten, invisible, hear this. God has never overlooked you. You are not late. You are not disqualified. You are exactly where His hands have placed you. And if you stay aligned, even when no one notices, even when it costs you, even when it's hard, God will elevate you in His perfect time. He will reward what was refined in the fire. He will anoint what was formed in secret, and what no human could take credit for will be the undeniable evidence of His hand on your life. And if He promised to fight for you, then don't you dare step off the path. Stay the course. Don't abandon your calling for applause that fades. Don't trade obedience for access to a table God never prepared for you. Your reward is not in the spotlight, it's not in being seen, it's in being faithful before the one who sees everything. So keep your hands pure, keep your heart soft, keep walking forward. Let your highest ambition be to stay in step with God. Let alignment, not achievement, be your pursuit. Because when all is said and done, it won't matter how high you climbed in the eyes of others, but how closely you walked with the one who called your name. And if you walked with Him, truly walked with Him, you lived a life of purpose. That is alignment, that is legacy, that is the life you were born to live. When the winds begin to shift in your life, when the foundation beneath you trembles and everything familiar starts falling away, don't panic, don't retreat, don't collapse beneath the weight of uncertainty. Because that very shaking, that disruption, it's not destruction, it's preparation. It's often the sign that God is about to place something in your life so profound, so powerful, so tailor-made by His hand that you couldn't have earned it and you wouldn't have known how to ask for it. There are seasons when the volume of chaos increases, not because God has disappeared, but because He is drawing near to silence what once stood against you. Before God releases the weight of glory, He always creates space. And that space-making can look like loss. It can feel like unanswered prayers, like missed opportunities, like delay. But don't be deceived. That delay, it's divine timing. That confusion, it's part of holy construction. That quiet, it's God's voice, subtle, steady, preparing the ground. God doesn't pour greatness into clutter. So when He's ready to do something extraordinary, He starts by removing the excess. He empties your hands so they're open to receive. He shuts doors not meant for you. He detaches you from comfort to anchor you in calling. And yes, it can feel like you're being left behind, but you're not being abandoned. You're being aligned. Everything He removes, everything He shifts is Him making room for what only He can give. It's God saying, you're not going to need them where I'm taking you. You see, what God has for you cannot be diluted, cannot be shared, and cannot be sabotaged by those who don't belong. So when things start falling apart, praise God. When people start walking away, praise God. When your plans collapse and nothing makes sense, praise God. That's how you'll know. That's the sign. That's the moment you should prepare your heart, because something big is coming. God never announces His blessings with fireworks. He announces them with a test of faith, a test of patience, a test of surrender. Right before the breakthrough, God will ask you to walk by faith and not by sight. He will ask you to trust Him in the dark. He will ask you to believe in what you cannot see. Why? Because what He is about to give you is not ordinary, it is not natural, it is not humanly possible. It is divine, it is supernatural, it is beyond anything you could have imagined. And before He gives you that thing, He tests your foundation, He tests your posture, He tests your motives. He watches to see if your heart is still pure, if your hands are still clean, if your focus is still on Him and not on the blessing. Because the size of your preparation determines the size of your reward. God doesn't give diamonds to those who can't carry pressure. He doesn't give mountains to those who can't handle the climb. He doesn't give harvest to those who slept through the planting season. So when God is about to give you something big, He will first make you uncomfortable. That discomfort is not punishment, it is preparation. You'll know it's God when everything in your spirit begins to shift. Your appetite for old habits will dry up. Your tolerance for gossip, mediocrity, and small thinking will disappear. People around you won't understand why you're suddenly so quiet, why you're not picking up their calls, why you've stopped explaining yourself. But you're not isolating, you're incubating, you're not running, you're resting in God. You are shedding the old to make room for the new. And when God sees you willing to let go of what you want to receive what He wills, that's when the floodgates open. That's when the blessing finds you. But here's the truth. Before it gets better, it might get worse. Because elevation requires separation. The higher you go, the fewer people can breathe at your level. The more God reveals, the more He conceals you. God hides His greatest gifts before He releases them. Think of it, and the seed must be buried before it can bloom. The pearl is hidden inside the shell. The gold is found deep underground. And so too, the blessing God is about to give you, it is hidden but not from you. It's hidden for you, reserved, preserved, and it's being formed. In the fire of trials you didn't ask for, in the silence you didn't understand, in the pain you didn't deserve. When you begin to feel like quitting, hold on. When nothing you try seems to work, stand still. When the pressure mounts and you feel like screaming, lift your hands instead. Because that resistance, that delay, that crushing weight, it's not a sign that God has forgotten you. It's the proof that God is forming you. He is stretching your capacity so that when He pours the blessing, you won't break. You'll carry it. You'll sustain it. You'll protect it. There is a holy weight coming into your life, and God cannot release it into a reckless spirit. He will not give sacred things to careless hands. That's why the struggle has been so long. That's why the battle has been so fierce. That's why you've been misunderstood, rejected, overlooked. God was hiding you. God was shielding you. God was setting you apart. Because what He's about to do through you requires isolation. It requires obedience. It requires a faith that is unshaken by circumstances. When God is about to give you something big, you'll notice that your spirit becomes sensitive. Things that used to entertain you will no longer satisfy you. You will hunger for quiet. You will crave prayer. You will desire the presence of God more than the approval of people. That is not coincidence. It is confirmation. It is God drawing you close, whispering to your soul, "Get ready. I'm about to do something you never saw coming, you never prevented." And don't look for validation. Don't wait for others to understand. God didn't give them the vision. God gave it to you. Stop asking people for permission to walk in a promise they didn't receive. They weren't in the room when God whispered it. They didn't see what you saw. They don't carry what you carry. And so they cannot grasp the magnitude of what is coming. But you know, deep in your spirit, you know. You feel it every time you pray. You sense it every time you're quiet. You can't explain it, but it's there. That weight, that expectation, that unshakable belief that something is shifting. And it is. You're not crazy. You're not desperate. You're not overthinking. You are discerning. You are awake. You are in tune with the move of God. And while others are distracted by the noise of the world, you are listening for the whisper of heaven. And God is faithful. God is not a man that he should lie. If he spoke it, he will perform it. If he showed it to you, he will bring it to pass. Not on your schedule, not on your terms, but in his perfect timing. So stay ready, stay faithful, keep your hands clean and your heart pure. Because when God is about to give you something big, he watches your posture. He examines your worship. He weighs your motives. And he wants to know, do you want the blessing or do you want the giver? Do you seek the gift or do you seek God? Because if you seek God first, everything else will follow. If you chase his will, his wonders will chase you. If you bow in surrender, he will raise you in power. And the thing you thought you lost, he will restore. The thing you cried over, he will redeem. The thing you didn't think you were qualified for, he will anoint you to handle. But you must believe, you must walk with expectation, not with arrogance, but with assurance, not with fear, but with faith. Because when God is about to give you something big, he doesn't ask you to understand, he asks you to believe. To believe even when the door is shut, to believe even when the answer is delayed, to believe even when everything inside of you is weary. Because faith is not just believing when you see it, faith is believing before it happens. And it is that kind of faith that moves the hand of God. And let me tell you this, when God is about to give you something big, the enemy will try harder than ever to distract you. He will send confusion, he will whisper doubt, he will stir up unnecessary conflict, and he will tempt you to settle for less than what God has promised. That's how you know you're close. The pressure intensifies when the breakthrough is near. The noise rises when the blessing is around the corner. And in those moments, you must become even more rooted, even more disciplined, even more surrendered. Because what's ahead of you is not just for comfort, it's for purpose. God doesn't bless just to please you. God blesses to position you. You are being positioned to influence, to speak life, to bring light where there is darkness. And so, before the blessing arrives, God teaches you how to manage pain without bitterness, how to walk through betrayal without vengeance, how to suffer without losing your praise. Because when you receive what God has for you, he wants to know you won't be consumed by it, that the blessing won't turn into your burden, that the success won't silence your spirit, that the increase won't disconnect you from the source. God is not just preparing a blessing for you, he is preparing you for the blessing. And when you start to see your life through that lens, you'll begin to realize that even the setbacks were set up. The loss was a lesson. The rejection was redirection. The closed door was God's mercy keeping you from a trap. Every unanswered prayer was not denial, it was divine preservation. Because if God didn't give you what you asked for, it's because he was getting ready to give you more than you asked for. Something bigger, something eternal, something only he could make happen. There was really only one answer, but there were maybe 2 or 3 others depending on a certain cultural. So if you've been walking through a season where things don't add up, rejoice. If you've been feeling isolated, misjudged, or forgotten, lift your head. That's not a curse. That's not punishment. That's the weight of glory preparing to rest on your life. You see, God doesn't build palaces on unstable ground. He doesn't place crowns on the heads of the untested. So every storm you've survived, every valley you've crawled through, every tear you've cried in secret, they've all been counted. Not one moment of your pain has been wasted. Not one day of your struggle has been ignored. God saw it all, and He is faithful. The signs are not always loud, but they are clear. When God is about to give you something big, your character begins to grow faster than your comfort. Your roots deepen while the fruit delays. You begin to speak less and listen more. You start to walk away from drama, from noise, from anything that poisons your peace. That is God pulling you out of the shallow and into the sacred. That is God teaching you that real blessings don't come with chaos, but with clarity. They don't come with anxiety, but with assurance. And they don't come through striving, but through surrender. God's timing is never early, it is never late, it is precise, it is perfect. But the human heart grows weary, and in that weariness we begin to question, has God forgotten me? Why does it take so long? But remember, every delay in your life has been in service to something greater. If God had given you what you wanted when you wanted it, you would have settled for a fraction of your purpose. God knows when you're ready, He knows when the conditions are right, and He knows how to prepare a blessing so tailor-made for your soul that when it arrives you will say, only God could have done this. And when that blessing comes, it will not just elevate your life, it will glorify God. People will look at you and not see your talent, not see your strength, but they will see the hand of God. They will wonder how you survived, how you made it through, how you are still standing, and your life will be a living testimony. That's what the blessing is for, not to make you boast, but to make you bow, to draw attention to yourself, but to point all glory back to God, the one who kept you, covered you, and carried you. Now here's a truth that might shake you. Sometimes God delays the blessing because He wants to see if you'll still worship while you wait. Will you still trust Him when nothing is changing? Will you still praise Him when doors remain shut? Will you still serve when you feel empty? That is the test, because what you do in the waiting determines what you'll do in the winning. If you complain in the dry season, you'll grow complacent in the harvest. But if you remain faithful in a drought, you'll overflow in the rain. So guard your heart, guard your mind. Don't let bitterness take root. Don't let weariness rob your joy. Don't let impatience make you miss what's coming. Because just when you think it's over, God moves. Just when you think He's silent, He speaks. Just when you're ready to give up, He opens the door. God doesn't work on your schedule, but He always works. And His work is perfect. His ways are higher. His thoughts are wiser. And His blessings, oh, His blessings, they come wrapped in peace, soaked in purpose, and sealed by His power. Listen to me now. God is not going to give you something average. He is not going to give you something that looks like what you lost. He is going to give you something better, something bigger, something that makes you forget the nights you cried, something that makes you understand why it took so long, something that humbles you, not because you deserved it, but because God is good. And when it comes, you will know. You won't have to force it. You won't have to manipulate people to keep it. You won't have to compromise your values to hold on to it. Because when something is from God, it fits, it flows, it feels right, it brings peace, it aligns with your spirit, it lifts you, not drains you, it gives life, not anxiety, and it glorifies God, not your ego. You see, the enemy can imitate opportunity, but he cannot manufacture peace. He can offer speed, but not substance. He can offer flash, but not foundation. That's why when you're close to your breakthrough, you must be wise. Not everything that looks good is from God. Some things are tests, some offers are distractions dressed up as destiny, and it takes discernment to know the difference. So seek God, ask for clarity, wait for confirmation. And when God moves, move with Him. Don't second guess, don't look back, don't seek the approval of others. Because when God gives the word, no one can stop it. No delay can cancel it. No enemy can block it. No hater can undo it. What God has declared over your life, it is sealed. And some of you right now are standing on the edge of it. You felt it coming. You've seen glimpses in your dreams. You've heard whispers in your spirit. And yet, you've been attacked more in this season than ever before. That's not a coincidence. That's confirmation. The enemy wouldn't fight you so hard if you weren't carrying something precious. He wouldn't try to wear you out if he didn't know what was coming. You're not under attack because you're weak. You're under attack because you're close. So don't give up. Don't throw in the towel. Don't believe the lie that says it's too late. With God, it's never too late. He can restore in a moment what you thought was lost forever. He can rebuild what was shattered. He can resurrect what died. Because God is not limited by time, by logic, or by human opinion. He is sovereign. He is supreme. He is able. And He is about to do something big in your life, something that generations after you will speak about, something that shifts the entire atmosphere around you, something that brings healing to your family, peace to your soul, and light to everyone around you. But for now, prepare, purify, pray, praise, because the blessing is not just coming to you, it is coming through you. And there comes a moment in your journey when you realize the very waiting room you despise was actually a holy place, a place where God stripped you of pride, emptied you of noise, and taught you the discipline of stillness. It was in that sacred pause that your ears were tuned to the whisper of God. You didn't know it then, but that quiet season, when no doors opened, when no one clapped, when nothing made sense, was the furnace where your character was being refined. God was not withholding from you. God was protecting what He was building within you. You see, when God plans to trust you with something monumental, He must first make sure you are trustworthy. It is easy to desire greatness, but it is another thing to carry it with humility. God doesn't want you to receive the blessing and forget the process. He doesn't want you to stand on a platform and think you climbed there by your own strength. So before the rise comes the crushing. Before the overflow comes the pruning. Before the promise, there is always a preparation that feels like pressure. That pressure is holy. That pressure is sacred. That pressure is not the absence of God, and it is the evidence that He is near. And when you begin to shift from questioning God's timing to trusting His wisdom, the atmosphere begins to change. Your prayers mature. Your worship deepens. Your dependence becomes pure. No longer are you pleading for comfort. Now you're asking for clarity. You're no longer rushing. Now you're resting in the assurance that what God has appointed, no man can cancel. You're not trying to make things happen. You're allowing God to move as He wills. That is the posture of one who is ready. That is the spirit of someone God can trust. And let me say this boldly, not everyone will understand your transition. When God is getting ready to give you something big, He separates you from what is small. He removes you from what is shallow. He disconnects you from people who were only attached to your former season. And though it may hurt, do not grieve what God removes. The pruning may feel personal, but it is purposeful. Some people cannot go where God is taking you. Some relationships were never meant to follow you into destiny. And if you continue dragging them into spaces where they don't belong, you will delay what was already ordained. You cannot carry what is holy while clinging to what is harmful. You cannot receive what is sacred while holding on to what is stale. God will not place fire in hands that are still chained to compromise. That's why you felt the shift. That's why your appetite has changed. That's why old habits now feel heavy. God is making room, and He's not asking for your opinion. He's demanding your obedience. Because the blessing that's coming is not for your comfort, it's for His glory. And you must be willing to walk alone if that's what obedience requires. Because obedience is the gate through which blessings flow. Not just verbal agreement, not emotional response, but full surrender. When God sees that your heart is yielded, when He sees that your hands are open, when He knows that your agenda is dead and His will is your only desire, That's when the shift becomes visible. That's when what was delayed is released. That's when what you've been carrying in your spirit begins to manifest in your reality. So don't be discouraged by the silence. Don't be shaken by the delay. Don't interpret stillness as stagnation. God often does His greatest work in hiddenness. The roots of a tree grow silently before the branches ever stretch toward the sky. The foundation of a house is laid underground before a single wall is built. God is working beneath the surface of your life. The silence does not mean He is inactive. It means He is being intentional. And when the time comes, it will be sudden. It will be undeniable. It will be so precise that you will look back and say, "Now I understand." The doors that once refused to open will swing wide. The opportunities you once chased will come searching for you. The favor that once seemed far off will rest on you like a garment. But it will not come to validate you. It will come to glorify God through you. That's the sign that it's from God. It won't feed your pride. It will humble you. It won't make you arrogant. It will make you bow. It won't point to you. It will point to the greatness of the one who orchestrated it all. And when that day arrives, and it will arise, you will realize that every moment of pain had purpose. Every delay was divine. Every no was necessary. Every tear was a seed. And now you're walking into the harvest, not just of what you asked for, but of what you didn't even know you needed. Because God doesn't just answer your prayers, He exceeds them. He sees the cries of your heart that your lips never uttered. He knows the longing you tried to bury. And He, in His perfect wisdom, gives in a way that heals as it honors. You may have been waiting for a thing, but God was preparing to give you more than a thing. He was preparing to give you an encounter, a divine shift, a life-altering moment that only He could orchestrate. But only those who endure see the fullness. Only those who trust through the tension experience the overflow. The road is narrow, the climb is steep, but the view, the view, is beyond what your mind can imagine. And hear this truth deep in your bones. When God is about to release something beyond comprehension, He will first demand the death of your own will. Not because He wants to hurt you, but because He wants to protect you from the danger of your own desires. God will never allow what you want to suffocate what He ordained, so He will test your surrender. He will ask you to lay your Isaac on the altar, the very thing you've longed for, cried for, prayed for, and see if you can walk away in trust. Because when you can let go of the gift and still worship the giver, then and only then are you ready for the kind of blessing that carries eternal weight. There's a moment where your prayers must shift from "give me" to "prepare me," because what God is bringing to your life is not just an answer, it's a responsibility. It will require wisdom to manage it, discipline to sustain it, and humility to carry it. God doesn't bless your ambition, He blesses your submission. The size of what's coming is directly tied to the size of your surrender. The bigger the blessing, the deeper the stripping. And that is why you must not despise the process. The fire is forming something in you that ease never could. The pressure is pushing out of you everything that cannot live in the next season. Some of you have been misreading the warfare around you. You've thought it was punishment, when really it was a preparation for promotion. The attacks you've endured, the betrayal you've survived, the chaos that came out of nowhere. These were not signs of abandonment. They were signs that God was making you battle-tested. Because what's ahead will not only bless you, it will shake systems, shift atmospheres, and silence every voice that spoke against your name. And for that, you must be built strong. Your foundation must be God alone. Your security must be God alone. Your identity must be rooted not in what you hold, but in who holds you. And when God sees that your posture is right, He moves. Not when you complain, not when you beg, but when you align. When your soul stops wrestling and your spirit begins to rest, that is the point of readiness. That is the moment heaven begins to open. And you will find that God doesn't need a crowd to bless you. He doesn't require anyone to approve what He has appointed. In fact, many times your biggest blessings will be birthed in the most private places, in caves, not castles, in stillness, not spectacle. Because God is not interested in impressing people, He is interested in transforming you. So don't chase visibility, chase intimacy with God. Don't seek the platform, seek the presence. Because the blessing you're about to receive won't make you louder. It will make you quieter. It will humble you. It will convict you. It will press you into even deeper dependence. And the more God gives, the more He expects. Not perfection, but purity. Not performance, but posture. A heart that stays bowed even in success. A soul that trembles at His whisper even when standing on the mountaintop. And understand this, when God chooses to give you something big, it's because He's also assigned something eternal to your name. The blessing is not just about money, status, or recognition. The blessing is about impact. It is about legacy. It is about light in dark places. God is entrusting you with influence, not so you can rise, but so that He can be revealed through your rise. You are a vessel, a carrier, a light bearer, and for that role, you must be refined. So let the fire do its work. Let the silence shape your ears to hear what noise could never teach you. Let the waiting stretch your faith until it no longer depends on evidence. Because when you walk by conviction and not condition, you are ready for what others can't carry. Many are called, but few are prepared. The preparation is what separates the temporary from the timeless. And here's what you must never forget. God is watching how you handle the small things. He's watching how you treat people who can do nothing for you. He's watching how you steward the quiet seasons, the unnoticed labor, the prayers prayed in secret. Because when He's about to give you something big, He looks not at your public voice, but at your private loyalty. Do you still praise when there is no audience? Do you still trust when the door stays shut? Do you still obey when the reward is invisible? That is where the real work happens, not on the stage, but in the secret place. Not in what people see, but in what only God sees. And when that hidden foundation is strong, God will lift you. He will promote you. He will elevate you. Not to shine a light on you, but to shine a light through you. So keep building in silence, keep sowing in faith, keep walking even when no one applauds. Because what God is about to do in your life is not seasonal, it's supernatural. It's not manufactured by man, it's manifested by God. And when it comes, it will not be small, it will not be average. It will be evidence of divine favor, evidence of holy preparation, evidence that God saw you when no one else did and remembered you when everyone else forgot. And you will stand in that moment not as someone who got lucky, but as someone who was proven, someone who was pressed, purified, and positioned, someone who passed the tests. And the beauty of it all, you won't need to explain it, you won't need to defend it. The blessing will speak for itself. It will declare the greatness of God through the story of your life. So lift your head, square your shoulders, fix your heart on God. Because you are not just waiting, you are being watched by heaven, and the moment of release is coming. And when it comes, the blessing will overtake you. Not because you were the most talented, not because you had the best plan, but because you trusted God. You stayed when it hurt. You worshiped when it was dark. You kept going when it made no sense. And God will reward you in a way that only He can. And let every soul hear this now. When God is preparing to give you something big, He doesn't only examine your faith, He also examines your intentions. What are you truly asking for? Is it to serve God's purpose or to satisfy your pride? Is it to glorify His name or to elevate your own? God does not release the weight of His blessings into the hands of those who crave recognition more than righteousness, does not pour out the oil of His favor upon those who are chasing applause instead of chasing Him. The heart must be pure. The soul must be stripped of self-centered desires. Because what God is about to give you is not just a reward, it is a sacred responsibility. Because there is not a God, there is an earth. When God begins to prepare something divine, He does not work with haste. The greater the assignment, the deeper the cleansing. You may feel stretched beyond your limit, tested beyond your strength, but it is because God is expanding the borders of your soul. The vessel must be made ready for the weight it is destined to carry. A shallow foundation cannot hold a towering structure. A brittle spirit cannot steward a blessing forged in the fires of purpose. So if you feel as though you've been broken, it is because God is removing everything that cannot endure what is coming. He is tearing down every counterfeit identity, every false comfort, every idol of control that you've clung to, so that when He builds, it is His hand alone that is visible. Understand this. When God calls you to something big, He rarely gives you all the details. He gives you just enough light for the next step, because the blessing is not merely in the destination, it is in learning to trust the path you cannot see. Faith is not about walking where it makes sense. Faith is about walking where only obedience can lead you. And that is when you begin to grow, not just in what you know, but in who you become. God is shaping a soul that can weather storms without folding, a heart that can be trusted with power and not be corrupted by it. You may have cried in the dark, asking why the journey has taken so long. You may have whispered prayers soaked in sorrow, wondering if God still sees you. Let this be the answer your spirit has waited for. God sees all. God hears every unspoken plea, counts every tear that falls in secret, and reads every thought that trembles within your chest. Nothing escapes His watch, nothing delays without purpose. And when God decides it is time, no force on earth can stand in the way. No enemy can undo what God has written. No man can revoke what God has approved. It will be delivered not a second too soon, not a breath too late. And you must recognize this. The closer you get to what God has ordained, the more intense the spiritual resistance will become. This is not a sign that you are failing. It is a signal that the gates of opposition have noticed your momentum. But you must not retreat. You must not shrink back. The resistance is a revelation. It means you are aligned. It means you are advancing. God does not allow giants to appear before those who are not destined to conquer. The presence of opposition is proof that something powerful is ahead. But you must not fight with fleshly weapons. When God is your source, your strategy must be spiritual. You win battles through unwavering trust. You overcome through consistent obedience. You walk into victory by speaking what God has spoken, even when the visible world contradicts it. Speak as though it's already done. Praise as though it's already yours. Move as though the promise is not a distant hope, but a present certainty. That is the kind of faith that commands heaven's attention. And do not let comparison dilute your conviction. What God is preparing for you cannot be measured by what others have received. Stay in your lane, guard your eyes, keep your focus on what God is doing in you, not what He's doing for someone else. Because when your time comes, and it will come, it will fit you perfectly. It will speak your name. It will require every lesson you've learned, every pain you've endured, every step of the obedience you've walked. You will realize then that God wasn't just preparing the blessing for you, He was preparing you for the blessing. And the transformation that happens in the waiting, that's the real miracle. Before the fruit appears, the roots go deep. Before the promise is fulfilled, the soul is fortified. God uses the waiting season to teach you things that victory alone could never teach. He uses the quiet to show you who He truly is, without distractions, without applause, without noise. It is there in the stillness that God reveals the depths of His mercy and the fire of His purpose. So walk through the delay with dignity. Let your silence be loud with confidence in God. Let your stillness echo with trust. Let your obedience sing louder than any fear or doubt, because every step you take in the dark is building a testimony that will shine in the light. God will use your endurance as evidence. He will use your faithfulness as a foundation. He will make your life a mirror that reflects His power, not your perfection, not your performance, but His absolute and unshakable power. When the moment arrives, then know it will arrive. You won't have to force it. You won't have to manipulate it. You won't have to make it happen with your own strength. You will step into it and realize it was tailor-made by the hand of God. Doors will open, not because you knocked loud enough, but because God commanded them to. People will honor what you carry, not because you demanded respect, but because they will sense that what is on your life came from a higher place. And in that hour, do not forget where it came from. Do not mistake the blessing for the source. Do not cling to the gift and forget the giver. The moment you try to hold it in your own power, it will start to weigh you down. But if you carry it with the same surrender that led you there, it will lift you. It will strengthen you. It will multiply not only in your life, but in the lives of those connected to your obedience. And I say to every soul listening, when God is about to give you something big, the atmosphere around you will begin to shift in ways that cannot be explained by human logic. You may not see physical changes yet, but your spirit will know. Your discernment will awaken. Your dreams will carry messages too weighty for your sleep. You will feel the pull toward quiet, the divine urge to step back from noise and sink deeper into stillness. Because God does not shout when He speaks destiny, He whispers it. In moments of sacred solitude, He draws you away from the crowd, and not to isolate you, but to elevate your awareness of Him. And here is the deep truth many miss. Before God sends the increase, He often causes a shaking. The things you leaned on will tremble. The things you trusted will be tested, not to destroy you, but to strip away everything that could contaminate what is coming. God is not trying to take from you. He is trying to purify what will remain in you. Every great thing from God is born in a moment of surrender. And you cannot truly surrender until God has shown you that there's nothing else worth holding on to except Him. Some of you have been wondering why your prayers haven't been answered in the way you expected. But let me speak this clearly. Just because you have not seen the fruit yet does not mean the roots aren't growing. God is working underground. God is building silently. And when He finally brings it forth, it will happen so suddenly, so unmistakably, that no man will be able to take credit. It will come from angles you did not anticipate, through doors you never knocked on, from places your mind never imagined. That's how God moves, unexpectedly but precisely. But God will not release what is great into a vessel that is still clinging to what is small. So ask yourself, what do I need to release in order to receive? What fear do I need to lay down? What habit must be crucified in the secret place? What mindset must be broken so God can build upon something stable? The blessing you're waiting for doesn't just require an open hand. It requires a new heart. Not a perfect heart, but a heart that is teachable, pliable, yielded entirely to the will of God. Do not fear the pruning. Do not resist the process. Every cut is under the control of God's wisdom. Every delay is laced with divine strategy. Every disappointment is a redirection away from the counterfeit and toward what is truly yours by appointment. And make no mistake, what God has for you, no one else can touch. You don't need to compete, compare, or control. All you need to do is stay positioned, stay humble, stay faithful, and allow God to finish what He started. And when you feel the weight of waiting grow heavy, remember, God is not just testing your patience, He is cultivating your endurance. The kind of endurance that won't just carry the blessing, it will protect it. You must be able to handle what comes with the blessing, the visibility, the responsibility, the pressure, the attacks, the tests that come after the triumph. This is why God prepares in layers, and this is why God prepares in time. He doesn't just give, you grow into it, you become what the promise requires. And when the time is right, He lets you walk in it, and without fear, without shame, without apology. So do not despise the silence. God is still speaking, just not with the words you expect. Sometimes He speaks through closed doors, sometimes through unanswered emails, sometimes through empty rooms and restless nights. But if your ears are tuned to the frequency of the Spirit, you'll know that those moments are not void, they are divine communication. God is saying, wait, trust, I'm aligning everything. And when the alignment is complete, you won't have to ask for the blessing, it will chase you. It will find you at the intersection of obedience and surrender. And when it arrives, be ready to carry it with grace. Because with every big blessing comes big accountability. God will bless you to lift others, not to lord over them. He will give you influence to heal, not to harm. He will increase you to serve, not to be served. The blessing is not an end, it's a beginning. A beginning of a new level of responsibility, of sacrifice, of faithfulness. So now's not the time to lose focus. Now is the time to refine your walk, sharpen your vision, discipline your habits, and dig deeper into the heart of God. Because soon the silence will break, the storm will pass, the light will shine, and you will step into the thing that God has been preparing all along. Not because you earned it, but because you endured. Not because you strived, but because you submitted. And in that moment, you will look back and thank God for every door He closed, for every delay He allowed, for every prayer He didn't answer. Because now, finally, you see what He was doing all along. He wasn't withholding from you. He was refining, preparing, and perfecting what only He could complete. So take heart. Let your spirit rise with bold assurance, not in your ability, but in His unwavering faithfulness. Lift your eyes, even if your strength feels small. Speak words of faith, even if your voice shakes. Take that next step, even if the full picture hasn't yet unfolded. Because what's ahead isn't just significant, it's sacred. And if you remain rooted in obedience, anchored in truth, aligned with the heartbeat of heaven, you will carry this blessing with grace, with discernment, and with a peace so deep it defies all logic. This is the season of divine acceleration, where dreams long buried begin to breathe again, where prayers whispered in the dark rise into the light, where quiet, steady faith is honored for all to see. And when it happens, may your first response not be, "Look what I've achieved," but instead, "All glory to God, the one who saw me when no one else did, the one who lifted me in His perfect time." Because this isn't the fruit of striving, it's the harvest of surrender. And it's on its way. It is coming, it is coming, it is coming. So stay expectant, stay yielded. God is not done, He's only just begun. My friends, when the world grows cold, when the weight feels unbearable, when the road ahead is shadowed in doubt and uncertainty, there is one truth that stands immovable. When you trust God, unexpected blessings begin to flow. Hear me clearly, I'm not speaking of theory or wishful thinking. This isn't vague hope or spiritual fluff. I'm talking about a divine reality, a principle from heaven that unfolds in the lives of those who truly believe. When a soul lays it all down, fear, pride, doubt, control, and chooses raw, unwavering trust in God, something shifts. Heaven starts to move in ways no logic could ever script. Because God doesn't move according to our timelines. He's not waiting for you to have it all figured out. He doesn't need your perfection. He doesn't bless based on human calculation. He moves by surrender. He responds to yielded hearts. He pours out when pride is emptied and trust is full. God leans in when faith is no longer tethered to outcomes, when we stop trying to control the narrative and simply whisper, God, even in the dark, I trust you. That's when the impossible begins. That's when rain falls on barren ground. That's when doors swing wide, doors you never knew existed. That's when healing comes where there was only pain, when provision rises from lack, when clarity shines through confusion, when divine connections are placed in your path by unseen hands. God doesn't operate on forecasts or predictions. He moves by eternal design. And when you trust Him, really trust Him, you will discover that His timing never misses. His ways are always higher, and His blessings are more abundant, more precise, more beautiful than anything you could have planned for yourself. Some of you listening today are on the edge. You're tired, you've prayed, you've waited, you've been faithful, but you haven't seen the harvest yet. Let me speak directly to your spirit. Don't give up. Trust is not proven in the light. Trust is tested in the dark. God is not absent. He is watching your heart. And when that heart says, though everything is falling apart, I still believe, then God steps in, not just with what you want, but with what you never saw coming. There are blessings reserved for those who trust Him in the storm. Not after the storm, in the storm. It's easy to trust God when the bank account is full, when your health is strong, when the applause of people surround you. But can you trust Him when you're alone? Can you trust Him when the bills are piling up and the healing hasn't come? Can you trust Him when every door you thought would open has slammed shut? Because when you trust God at rock bottom, you give Him room to build something unshakable. That's when you discover that what God builds doesn't need the approval of men. It doesn't need a crowd. It doesn't need a committee. It just needs faith. Raw, stubborn, mountain-moving faith. And it's that kind of faith that brings blessings, so divine, so precise, so personal, that you know without a doubt it was only God. Look back over your life. How many times did the blessing come after you let go? How many times did God show up after you stopped trying to fix everything yourself? That job you didn't apply for, that friend who appeared in your darkest hour, that breakthrough that arrived the moment you said, God, I surrender. These aren't coincidences. They are confirmations that trusting God is never in vain. The world will try to tell you to calculate everything, to play it safe, to depend on what you can see. But the path of trust doesn't always look logical. It doesn't always feel safe. It often looks like stepping into nothing until God proves it was everything. That's when the supernatural collides with the natural. That's when the invisible hand of God reveals what was. Hidden all along, the blessing was always there, waiting for your trust to unlock it. You may not see it today, you may not feel it, but God is working behind the scenes. While you're crying in silence, He's planning your restoration. While you're breaking under pressure, He's building your testimony. While you're praying in desperation, He's aligning the right people, the right time, the right door. And when that door opens, it will make sense why every other door was shut. When the blessing arrives, it will be tailor-made. It will fit your life, your heart, your calling. It won't be random, it will be divine. You must trust even when your emotions scream otherwise. Faith is not a feeling, it's a decision. Trust says, God, I don't see the way. but I believe you are the way. I don't know how, but I believe you know. I don't understand, but I know you hold the plan. And that kind of faith attracts the supernatural. That kind of faith invites blessings that defy logic, that confuse your enemies, that silence your critic. Because when God blesses a life that trusted Him in secret, He blesses it in such a way that no one can deny it was His hand alone. Don't wait to trust until things feel better. Trust now. Trust when it hurts. Trust when it's silent. Trust when your mind is racing and your strength is failing. Trust is an act of war against the lies of fear. Trust is saying, I will not be moved. And when God sees that kind of resolve, He responds, not with small comfort, but with unexpected abundance. Some of you have been living in survival mode too long. You've been begging for crumbs when God has a feast prepared. But He cannot give the feast to those who only trust when they can taste. He gives it to those who trust when their mouth is dry and empty. That's where the oil begins to flow. That's where the jar of flour never runs out. That's where barren fields bloom and rivers run through deserts. What you think is the end might just be the beginning. What you think is a breakdown could be a setup for a breakthrough. But you must decide today, will you trust God completely? Not half-heartedly, not with conditions, but with a heart that says, even if I lose it all, I will not lose my faith. God has a history of showing up after the impossible. He waits until the Red Sea is in front of you and Pharaoh is behind you. He waits until the lions surround you and there's no escape. He waits until the fire is heated 7 times hotter. Why? Because when He delivers, He wants it to be clear. It was only Him. Trust turns ordinary moments into divine appointments. A simple act of obedience can unlock a destiny. A single prayer of surrender can trigger an avalanche of favor. You don't need to manipulate your future. You don't need to chase blessings. You need to trust the one who holds them all in His hands. When you trust God, you begin to walk with peace even when chaos surrounds you. You begin to sleep when others panic. You begin to speak hope when others spread fear. And in that atmosphere of faith, blessings begin to arrive, some seen, some unseen, but all perfectly timed. Trust is not weakness. It is the highest form of spiritual strength. It is saying, God, you are enough even if I have nothing else. And when you live like that, blessings will chase you down. They will find you in unexpected places. They will overtake you without warning, not because you deserved them, but because you dared to believe when it was hardest to believe. This is the call today, not to more effort, not to more anxiety, but to deeper trust. God is not asking for your strategy, He's asking for your surrender. He's not asking for your plan, He's asking for your faith. He's not waiting for you to be perfect. He's waiting for you to be fully His. The moment you let go of what you thought life should look like, God will begin to show you what it was always meant to be. The moment you stop holding back, He will start pouring out. And the blessings that come, oh, they won't be small. They will be pressed down, shaken together, and running over. They will come when you least expect it. They will come through people you never imagined. They will come in ways that exceed your limited understanding. Because that's how God works. He doesn't just meet your needs, He exceeds them. He doesn't just fill your cup, He overflows it. He doesn't just answer your prayers, He answers them in ways that leave you speechless. But all of it hinges on one thing: your trust. If you can trust Him when the road is rough, if you can trust Him when the heavens are silent, if you can trust Him when nothing seems to change, then get ready, because the blessing that's coming will not be ordinary. It will be unexpected. It will be unmistakable. It will be God. And when it comes, you'll look back and say, now I understand. Now I see why I had to wait. Now I see why every detour, every delay, every disappointment was necessary. It wasn't punishment. It was preparation. Trust God. Trust Him when it hurts. Trust Him when it's hard. Trust Him when you have every reason to doubt. Because when you trust Him, He doesn't just come through. He comes through better than you prayed, bigger than you dreamed, and sooner than you expect. Let me tell you this and let it thunder in your spirit. What you think is a delay is not a denial. It's divine design. When you walk by trust, you no longer judge your life by what you see in front of you. You judge it by the faithfulness of the one who holds the universe in His hands. God is never in a hurry, and He is never late. He is not pressured by time, not moved by public opinion, and not intimidated by your circumstances. He moves with purpose, and He rewards those who trust without seeing. There are blessings that cannot be rushed because they are not ordinary blessings. They are blessings that require preparation, maturity, endurance, and purification. You may be asking, why is it taking so long? But the better question is, what is God building inside me while I wait? Because when God blesses, He blesses in a way that you are not only ready to receive it, but able to sustain it. Trust sharpens your character. Trust kills your pride. Trust breaks your dependence on people. Trust makes your heart strong enough to carry what God is about to release in your life. You may feel like you're walking through fire, but let me declare this over your life. You are not being burned. You are being refined. The heat you feel is not meant to destroy you, but to shape you. It's in the furnace of trust where doubt dies and divine confidence is born. It's in the silence of waiting where the deepest revelations rise. And it is in the unseen places where God is forming the foundation for blessings you're not even praying for yet. You must come to a place where your trust in God is not based on outcomes, but rooted in who He is. Because when you truly know God, when you know He is righteous, when you know He is just, when you know He is merciful, you stop panicking when life doesn't make sense. You stop complaining when people reject you. You stop running after what God is trying to remove. You stand still and you trust. Some of the greatest blessings God will ever give you are not material, they are internal. Peace in the storm, strength in your weakness, clarity in your confusion, wisdom in your decisions. These are the kinds of blessings that come when you let go of the outcome and hold on to the presence of God. And once your heart is anchored in Him alone, then and only then do the external blessings begin to fall into place. Listen to this carefully. Trusting God is not passive. It is the most powerful act of spiritual warfare. While others worry, you worship. While others stress, you stand still. While others chase answers, you sit at the feet of the one who holds them. That kind of trust is not weak, it's unstoppable. It threatens darkness. It frustrates the plans of the wicked. It attracts the favor of God like a magnet. God has never failed a single soul who put their full trust in Him. The old paths are filled with stories of those who dared to believe when nothing made sense and saw the hand of God move in extraordinary ways. He lifted the humble. He honored the faithful. He exalted the ones the world forgot. Do not think He will treat you any differently. He is the same. He sees you. He hears you. He knows exactly what you need, even the things you haven't had the courage to pray for. There will come a time, yes, it will come, when the very thing you once cried about will become the testimony that others marvel at. The door you once begged to open, the peace you once longed for, the provision you once searched for, all of it will come. Not because you chased it, but because you trusted God enough to let Him bring it in His way. You may be surrounded by people who do not understand your faith. They may say, "Why don't you just give up? Why are you still waiting? Why do you keep trusting when nothing is changing?" Let your life be the answer. Let your endurance be the sermon. Let your peace be the evidence. And when the blessing arrives, when the breakthrough comes, they will have no choice but to admit, God was with you all along. Some blessings are not delayed because of sin or disobedience. They are delayed because they are so big, so heavy, so transformative that God must prepare every layer of your life before He releases them. He must position the right people. He must align the right moment. He must prepare your heart so that the blessing doesn't become your burden. And when it finally arrives, it won't be something you have to strive for. It will be something you simply step into. Do not curse your waiting season. Do not despise your quiet time. That is where the greatest spiritual growth happens. It's where God teaches you how to rely on Him and not on the applause of men. It's where He detoxes your spirit from the expectations of this world and fills you with divine perspective. And when the time is right, He will elevate you, not because you earned it, but because you trusted Him through it all. Every time you choose to trust instead of panic, you are planting seeds in the unseen realm, seeds of favor, seeds of joy, seeds of wisdom. And one day, when the season turns, those seeds will burst forth as a harvest so bountiful, it will silence every lie spoken against you. It will shut the mouths of those who doubted you. It will glorify God in ways that no sermon ever could. And you must get this truth deep into your bones. You don't need to see the blessing to believe it's coming. Faith is not sight. Faith is assurance in the unseen. Trust is believing that what God said is already done, even if your eyes haven't caught up with it yet. Speak it before you see it. Thank Him before it shows up. Walk like it's already yours, because in the heavenly realm it already is. The enemy wants you to quit right before the blessing breaks through. He wants you to question God, to fall into despair, to doubt everything you've stood on. But don't give him that satisfaction. Instead, dig your heels into the ground of faith and declare with unwavering conviction, I will trust God no matter what. That kind of declaration shakes the atmosphere. It invites the hand of God to move in ways the natural effort never could. God responds to faith, not fear, not anxiety, not manipulation, faith. And the most powerful form of faith is trust. Quiet, steady, unshakable trust. Trust that says, even if it costs me everything, I will not stop believing. Trust that stands when others fall. Trust that endures when nothing makes sense. When you walk in that level of trust, you become untouchable. Not because life stops being hard, but because your spirit is rooted so deeply in God that no storm can uproot you. That's when you begin to live in a realm above the noise, above the chaos, above the fear. That's when unexpected blessings begin to pour out, not just to elevate your life, but to glorify the one who never stopped working behind the scenes. And the chapter he's about to write, the one that comes after the trust, after the tears, after the waiting, will be more beautiful than anything you ever imagined. Because when God blesses those who trust Him, He does it in a way that reveals His glory, magnifies His mercy, and proves once and for all that trusting God is the greatest decision a human soul can ever make. You must understand deeply and fully, that when you trust God, you are aligning your life with the rhythm of divine power. You are no longer reacting to circumstances. You are responding to purpose. Trusting God is not a weakness. It is a force, a divine force that moves mountains, parts seas, opens barren wombs, silences storms, and lifts the lowly from the dust. When you trust God, you are not placing your life in the hands of chance. You are placing it in the hands of the one who sees the end from the beginning and makes no mistakes. Every trial you face is not to destroy you, it is to awaken something in you. Trust turns your pain into power, your delay into development, your detour into destiny. When the people around you stop believing, when friends walk away, when family turns cold, when your plans collapse and your dreams seem distant, that is when your trust must rise like fire in your bones. Because when everything external crumbles, your internal foundation in God becomes your anchor. And it is in that silent, hidden place where the deepest trust is born. Do not measure your progress by what you can see. Measure it by how deeply you trust God when nothing is visible. Because sometimes God hides the blessing to grow your dependence. Sometimes He withdraws the visible so He can cultivate the invisible. And when you prove that you will walk with Him, even in the fog, even in the fire, even in the silence, that's when the heavens begin to open and the unexpected blessings are released. God does not bless based on your status, your followers, your finances, or your talents. He blesses based on your heart, a heart that trusts Him even when the outcome is uncertain, a heart that honors Him in private, a heart that doesn't flinch when life doesn't go according to plan, a heart that says, God, whether you give or take away, I still trust you. That kind of heart shakes the spiritual realm. That kind of heart receives favor, not because of effort, but because of surrender. Sometimes the greatest obstacle to the blessing is not your enemies. It's your need to control. Trusting God requires you to release your grip on how things should happen. It requires you to step out of the way and allow God to orchestrate the story. And let me tell you this, what God writes with His own hand is always more beautiful, more powerful, and more fulfilling than anything you could write yourself. You may be walking through a season of silence. You've prayed, you've waited, and still nothing seems to move. But do not let the silence make you question His presence. Trust is not built in the noise, it is forged in stillness. It is in the silent seasons that God examines your motives, purifies your intentions, and removes the clutter from your soul. And when your trust matures, when it is no longer dependent on blessings but rooted in loyalty, then God unleashes favor that no man can stop. You don't need everyone to believe in you. You don't need applause. You don't need validation from people who do not walk your walk. You need to believe in the voice of God. You need to trust that if He said it, He will do it. If He closed the door, it was protection. If He delayed the plan, it was preparation. If He shifted the path, it was direction. God wastes nothing. Not your tears, not your time, not your trials. Everything is being woven into a blessing that will arrive exactly when your heart is ready to carry it. And when it arrives, you won't have to manipulate it. You won't have to chase it. You won't have to fear losing it. Because what God gives in response to trust comes with peace. It comes with stability. It comes with spiritual depth. It doesn't drain you. It fills you. It doesn't confuse you. It clarifies everything. The blessing of God never adds sorrow, it only multiplies meaning. Some of you are being tested right now, not because you've done something wrong, but because God is stretching your faith. He is preparing your capacity. He is enlarging your territory, not physically, but spiritually. You are being called to trust at a level you've never trusted before. And that means releasing the familiar, letting go of what you've always leaned on, abandoning the safety of your own understanding, and stepping into the unknown with nothing but faith in God. That is where the miracle happens. That is where the blessing comes. Not through your strength, but through your surrender. Not through striving, but through stillness. Not through control, but through confidence in the one who controls everything. Let them question you. Let them mock your faith. Let them call you foolish for still believing. Because the very thing they ridiculed today will become the evidence of God's glory tomorrow. And when the blessing comes, and it will come in such a way that even your enemies will say, "Surely God was with this one." Do not let the pressure of the moment rob you of your trust. Do not let the storm convince you that the ship will sink. The winds may blow, the waves may rise, but when your trust is anchored in God, you are unsinkable. You may bend, but you will not break. You may fall, but you will rise again. Because God does not abandon those who trust in Him. He upholds them. He strengthens them. He lifts them at the appointed time. And when that time comes, it will feel like the floodgates of favor have been opened. Doors you never knocked on will swing wide. People you never thought would help you will be moved to bless you. Ideas, resources, opportunities will appear, not because you chased them, but because you trusted the one who controls them all. This is not wishful thinking. This is divine law. This is spiritual truth. Trust unlocks what anxiety shuts down. Trust activates what fear delays. Trust draws down blessings that cannot be earned, only received. So I ask you today, how deeply will you trust God? Will you trust Him when the answer is not yet? Will you trust Him when you have no evidence, only assurance? Will you trust Him when the world is watching and you have no results to show, but your spirit says, "Still I believe"? Because that is where true power lives, not in comfort, but in conviction, not in clarity, but in commitment, not in the outcome, but in the obedience of faith. And the moment you make that decision, all of heaven leans in, the hand of God moves, and the blessing that was once far off begins its journey toward you, not because of who you are, but because of who He is. There is a sacred kind of strength that rises within a person when they trust God beyond understanding. Not surface-level belief, not conditional obedience, but wholehearted, soul-deep, uncompromising trust. The kind that holds steady when logic breaks. The kind that walks forward when eyes cannot see. The kind that chooses to say, "God is enough," even when nothing else makes sense. That trust is not born in comfort. It is born in the wilderness. It is forged in waiting rooms, in tear-soaked pillows, in silent nights where your only companion is faith. Let me speak to the one who feels forgotten. God has not forgotten you. The silence is not absence. The stillness is not abandonment. When you trust God, your life becomes part of a larger holy strategy, one that is often hidden from the natural eye. God works behind veils, behind closed doors, behind the curtain of time. And when He reveals His plan, you will see that every moment of pain had a purpose. Every detour held direction. Every delay was divine. Trust is not something you turn on when it's easy and off when it's hard. It is the steady posture of the soul that declares, "My life is not in my hands. It is in God's hands." And when your soul is positioned in that kind of faith, you will begin to see God's fingerprints everywhere, in the small things, in the quiet confirmations, in the people you meet by coincidence. Trust opens your spiritual eyes to see that nothing is random when you walk with God. There are blessings that come disguised as loss. There are breakthroughs that begin with closed doors. There are elevations that start in low places. But only those who trust God long enough will live to see the beauty unfold. Because blessings from God are not just about abundance, they are about alignment. God doesn't give you what you beg for. He gives you what your soul truly needs. And sometimes that means stripping away the distractions so you can receive the real blessing. Clarity, peace, strength, purpose. Let me tell you plainly. The longer you walk with God, the less impressed you become with the world. You no longer chase what they chase. You no longer envy what they envy. You no longer fear what they fear. Because your eyes are fixed on something higher. You begin to realize that trusting God is not just about receiving blessings. It's about becoming someone who cannot be shaken, someone whose peace is rooted in truth, someone whose joy is untouched by circumstance, someone whose identity is grounded in the reality that God alone is enough. You see, when you truly trust God, your whole posture changes. You stop explaining yourself to everyone. You stop forcing outcomes. You stop begging people to see your worth. Why? Because your confidence no longer comes from people. It comes from knowing that the one who formed you, who breathed life into your lungs, who wrote your name in His book, has already prepared your portion. What is meant for you will come. not a second late, not a breath too soon. And when it comes, it will fit your life, your growth, your purpose. There's a quiet dignity in trusting God. You don't need to broadcast it, you don't need to prove it, but it radiates from you. It shows up in the way you handle pressure, in the way you wait with patience, in the way you endure criticism without lashing back. Trust makes you immovable in a shaking world, and that kind of stability is a blessing all by itself. Let me speak to your heart again. Stop striving, stop rushing, stop trying to make it all happen on your own. Rest in the truth that God knows the way. Rest in the assurance that He is working while you wait. Rest in the knowledge that His delay is not denial. It is divine alignment. Trust is not sitting idle. It is standing alert. It is watching, ready, praying, praising. Not because everything is perfect, but because you know the one who is perfect in every way. And here's what no one tells you. Trusting God will cost you something. It may cost you your comfort. It may cost you approval. It may cost you your own plans. But what you gain will far outweigh the loss. You will gain divine wisdom. You will gain strength that doesn't break. You will gain peace that guards your heart like a fortress. And eventually you will gain blessings that make you drop to your knees and weep, not because you earned them, but because God was faithful to give them. When the blessing comes, it will not come through your effort alone. It will not come because you had everything figured out. It will come because you were found faithful, because you dared to believe when others gave up, because you chose to trust when everything screamed at you to doubt. And that kind of trust attracts blessings that cannot be measured with money or recognition. They are blessings that mark your soul and multiply through generations. Do not be surprised when God's blessings do not look like what you expected. God often answers in ways that stretch us, not spoil us. He blesses us not just to comfort, but to commission, to call us higher, to awaken purpose, to refine character. And when you trust Him, you begin to see the difference between what is good and what is God. Because not everything good is from God, but everything from God is always good, even if it's hard, even if it takes time, even if it first comes in the form of challenge. You must make a decision today to live from a deeper well, a well of trust, a well of surrender, a well that doesn't dry up in drought, that doesn't crack under pressure. Because when your trust runs deep, it becomes your supply in every season. It becomes your answer when the questions rise. It becomes your light when the night is long. Let your trust be louder than your worry. Let your trust be stronger than your fear. Let your trust be the lens through which you see the world, not through the opinions of others, not through the limits of your past, not through the noise of today's chaos, but through the eternal truth that God is your source, your guide, your refuge, your reward. And when that trust is fully alive in you, watch what happens. Watch how peace settles on your spirit. Watch how wisdom begins to flow from your mouth. Watch how doors begin to open, not because you forced them, but because your trust created space for God to move. This is not blind faith. This is bold, mature, tested faith. The kind that declares, I don't know what tomorrow holds, but I trust the one who holds tomorrow. The kind that says, I may not see the harvest yet, but I will not stop sowing. The kind that walks into the unknown and calls it home, not because it is easy, but because God is there. The world will never understand this kind of faith. It is not logical, it is not natural, it is spiritual, it is supernatural. It is anchored not in what changes, but in the one who never does. That is the power of trust. That is the reward of surrender. And that is the path to unexpected blessings. Blessings not born from effort, but from alignment with the will and wisdom of God. When you trust God truly and completely, You are not just waiting for a miracle, you become the dwelling place of miracles. The trust you carry becomes a signal in the unseen world, a call to heaven that says, "Here stands one who still believes." And when that kind of trust is present, even the impossible begins to tremble, for the one who created time, matter, and destiny is drawn to the soul that clings to him with unwavering faith. The power of trust is not just in what it receives, it's in what it declares. It is the voice of the heart that says, "Even if the winds roar and the mountains fall, I will not be moved. Even if every plan fails, I will not turn my face from God." This is not the weak whisper of blind hope. It is the roar of a soul anchored in the eternal. Trust is not passive submission. It is active defiance against the doubts that seek to dismantle you. It is rebellion against fear. It is the sword that cuts through confusion and declares that God is still on the throne. Let me say this clearly. If you want to live a life that carries the weight of divine blessing, you must be willing to walk through seasons that demand nothing less than full surrender. Because trust is not formed in moments of comfort, it is carved in the valleys of discomfort. It is in those places where everything familiar is stripped away, where your intellect is exhausted, where your options are gone. That's where real trust is born. And it is that trust which invites blessings that cannot be explained, only experienced. So many spend their lives chasing blessings, unaware that blessings are drawn to trust like rivers flow to gravity. When you walk with a heart surrendered to God, blessings chase you down. They don't need to be forced. They don't need to be manipulated. They come uninvited, yet unmistakable, because you are walking under the open favor of the Almighty. And what God sends, no one can block. What God ordains, no one can cancel. What God declares over your life will stand even if all of hell opposes it. But hear this, as with all the weight it deserves, the deeper the trust, the greater the transformation. Trust does not only change your circumstances, it changes you. It rewires your soul to think differently, speak differently, respond differently. It turns fear into confidence, panic into peace, chaos into clarity. When you trust God, you stop reacting to pressure and start responding with purpose. You stop fearing the unknown and start walking in spiritual authority, knowing that nothing touches your life without passing through the hands of God. Even the trials you face, even the pain that pierces your heart, God can use it all as preparation. He wastes nothing, not your tears, not your setbacks, not your waiting. Trusting God means believing that even your suffering is not meaningless, that even your losses can be turned into ladders that lift you higher, that even what was meant for your harm can become the very platform for your blessing. But that only happens when trust takes root deep within you. You must understand, God does not bless based on performance. He blesses based on posture. The posture of your heart matters more than the perfection of your behavior. A heart that is bowed in trust, a heart that says, "I will not let go of you, God, even if I don't understand," will always be lifted in due time. God responds to that kind of surrender with a power that no effort can imitate. And when He moves with precision, with wisdom, and with perfect timing. Some of you have been trying to make something happen that only God can do. You've been exhausting your strength trying to open a door that only responds to divine keys. And the key is trust, not talent, not strategy, not connections. Trust. Because the door God opens through trust will lead to blessings that are not seasonal, they are sustainable. They don't just elevate you, they transform you. There will be moments when the waiting gets long, when the silence feels like abandonment, when you question whether God still hears. But that's when your trust must speak louder than your feelings. Trust is not the absence of questions. It is the refusal to let questions shake your faith. It is the choice to believe that even when God is silent, He is still speaking through your circumstances. That even when He is unseen, He is still working in ways you cannot perceive. And when the blessing comes, because it will humble you. It will remind you that it wasn't your wisdom, your willpower, or your perfection that brought it to pass. It was trust, simple, steadfast, storm-tested trust. And you'll fall to your knees not just in gratitude for the blessing, but in awe of the God who proved faithful once again. The world may never understand the power of trusting God because the world chases control, but you are not called to live by the world's rhythm. You are called to live by trust. That trust will make you look foolish at times. It will separate you from those who settle for less. It will call you to paths few are willing to walk. But it will also place you under the covering of divine protection. It will set you apart for favor that cannot be duplicated or explained. When you trust God, you begin to carry a peace that doesn't make sense. You stop wrestling with outcomes. You stop chasing people. You stop fearing failure because you know your life is not in your own hands. It is in the hands of the one who created stars, splits seas, calms winds, and lifts those who walk humbly before Him. So here you are, standing at the edge of a choice. Will you continue to trust only when the path is clear? Or will you step forward in faith, believing that the same God who led you this far has no intention of leaving you now? Will you trust Him when the answers feel distant? Will you trust Him when people walk away? Will you trust Him when your strength runs dry? Because if your heart can rise in that moment and say, God, I trust you, not just in word, but with my whole life, then get ready. Get ready for the unexpected. Get ready for open doors no one else could open. Get ready for peace that doesn't make sense on paper. Get ready for blessings that your hands didn't earn, but your surrender welcomed. Not because of your perfection, but because of His faithfulness. That is the foundation, the unshakable truth. It's not about who you are, it's about who He is. Trusting God won't always make the road smooth, but it will make the journey eternal. It will lift you out of anxiety and plant you in divine assurance. It will carry you from confusion into God's wisdom. It will take the mundane and turn it into holy ground. So stand your ground. Speak with courage. Walk with humility. And trust with everything you've got. Because those who trust in God are never left behind. They are never forgotten. They are never without hope. And the blessings that follow that kind of trust won't just change your story. They'll proclaim to the world, God is still faithful to those who believe.